Okay, this is the Algebra 1 Unit 3A review. All right, and so I'm going to go through each one of these. I'm going to do it on a separate piece of paper. There's not enough room to actually do all the work here. So I'm going to basically just kind of do it on notebook paper. And so may show this only to the period of showing you what the directions say. So the first one says write an equation in point slope form. That's the point slope form right there. Y minus y1 equals m, open parentheses, x minus x1. So from the given information, make sure you show the work to receive credit. So we talked about this in class. When you see the ones here, that means it has to have 1 point. That's why it's called point slope. So you need 1 point and the slope. All right, so we're going to start with number 1 here. And like I said, I'm going to write it on notebook paper. So I'm actually going to do it. This is what I expect you to do. I'm going to take this and I'm going to go ahead and label this Algebra 1 Unit 3 review. All right, so my first one. All right, so there's my slope. There's my point. We're going to use the point slope form. So the point slope is on the right, just like we talked about earlier. All right, I like labeling these. So I'm going to say this is X1, this is Y1. I'm going to try to have some other colors in here so that way we can kind of see what happens here. All right, so this is Y. I don't put anything for the Y or the X, only the ones with the 1 in it. All right, minus, that's a minus there. It's a big minus. And Y1 is a -3. And I'm going to do this in a different color so you can see how it stands out. So this is a -3. All right. And it equals, and my slope is 2/3. So we're going to put 2/3 here. And it's going to be X minus, and X1 is a 2. So we're going to put 2 here. All right. So the first thing you notice, we have a parentheses here. Now, this is we're trying to put it in point slope form. Okay, because that's what the directions say. So here we go. Y, 2 negatives put together make a positive, that's a 3, equals 2/3. We're going to leave the parentheses, x minus 2. Now, this is the point slope answer. So this is my answer because it's in point slope form. So that's my answer in point slope form because that's what they're asking. All right, number 2. Slope is -5. My point is -6, 1. All right, I'm going to label my X1 or X1, Y1. And I'm going to write my point slope form. I like writing it out so I can follow it pretty well. I'm organized and I can see everything as it goes. All right, so this is going to be a Y because we're going to say minus. My Y1 is a 1. My M is the slope. That's a -5. We got X minus, and my X1's a -6. So here we go. We got another double negative here. So it's -6. Remember, we're just putting these in point slope form. So here we go. Y minus 1. That's -5. X, 2 negatives make a positive. And so that's right there. And this is my answer in point slope form. All right. So we're going to number 3. This time the slope is -5. My point is -7, 2. I'm going to label my X1, Y1. I'm going to write down my point slope. Type in everything. So that's going to be a Y minus. My Y1 is a 2. My slope is going to be -5. And this is going to be x minus my x1 is another -7. So it's another negative. So it's a double negative there. And so now we're just going to clean it up. So it's going to be y minus 2 equals a -5. Two negatives make a positive. So it's going to be x plus 7. And so you can see that this right here is my answer in point slope. So that's first three problems. Now, if you look at the next section, 4, 5, and 6, this is identify the point and the slope for each problem. Okay, for each point slope. So they want, or basically what I want you to do is I want you to tell me what the slope is and what the point is just by looking at this. All right. And so we talked about this in class. So I'm going to write these down. All right, so I'll put 4, here we go. So y minus 9 equals a -2x, open parenthesis, x minus 7. All right, so if you remember my point slope, and I'm just going to write this again so you can see it. I put x here. I don't know what I'm thinking. Boy, I'm really messing up. It's supposed to be x1 right there. Okay, we'll do it like this so you can see it better. This is x1, this is x. Okay, so this is the point slope. So if you look at it, what's changed and what hasn't changed. All right, so you see this is y. So this number is associated with y. If you notice, it's a negative. So that number there is a positive. We're just looking at that. That's a positive. All right, the slope is obviously -2 because it's right there in front of the parentheses. This is the x value. So both of these are x values. Now, if you notice, there's a negative already there. So if the negative is already there, then it's a +7. All right. So if what I said in class is you really just look at the opposite of these. All right. So if this is a -7, then your point for x. So here's my x and y point. It's like this. All right. So I'm looking for this. So my x is going to be 7. It's positive because it's the opposite of -7 here. And the opposite of minus 9 here is going to be 9. And this is the y value because this groups the y, this groups the x. So my slope is -2. My point is 7, 9. That's my answer. All right, so let's do number 5. And what's so nice about this, you just look at them. All right, so right here, there's my point. All right, this is a +4. So you shouldn't, and that belongs with the y. This is my x. So remember, you do the opposite. So my point is going to be, my first one's an x, my second one's a y. All right, so if x is, that's a -1, so the opposite is +1, comma. The opposite of +4 is a -4. My slope is the guy right here. It's always the guy that's right before the parentheses. And it's positive, so it'll stay positive. So my point is 1, -4. My slope is 3. We don't change the slope. We just keep it the way it is. All right, number 6. I'm gonna try to move my camera out a little further so we can see. All right, so number 6. All right, so let's go with our point. Look, my point is an x and y. All right, so if you look at it, my x value, that's a +3 with the x, so that's going to make it a -3 because it's the opposite. This y has a negative on it, so it's a +10. We don't have to put the positive, we just put 10. And my slope is going to be this guy that's in front of it by itself, 2/5. And that's how you do that section there. All right, I'm going to turn the page. All right, third section. Convert the following slope-intercept forms, y equals x plus b. So I want to convert these into the slope-intercept form, all three of these. So here we go. This is number 7. All right, so the first thing you notice, oh, you can't see it, my fault. Let's move my camera back. All right, so the first thing you notice, let's move it back some more. All right, here we go. That's perfect. All right, so the first thing you know is I have a parentheses. And whenever we have a parentheses, we talked about this in class, is that we distribute. So I'm going to distribute. See how the -2 is next to the parentheses? So this whole thing is going to get multiplied to the x. So it's going to be a negative 2x. Negative 2 is going to get multiplied to negative 5. Remember, two negatives make a positive, and 2 times 5 is 10. All right, the other guy is going to stay the same. We're not going to change it. So I'm just going to leave it in a different color, the same color that we found it. All right, now remember, we're looking for slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So we want the y by itself. If I want the y by itself, I got to get rid of the number that's with the y here. Since y is being subtracted before, I'm going to do the opposite. And I'm going to do plus 4 to both sides. Now notice how I line it up. I line it up right under the number. There's my equal sign. And I'm going to add plus 4 right under the 10, not with the 2x, just with the 10. All right, now I bring down my y. This becomes a 0 pair. Bring down my equal sign. Bring down my negative 2x. And then 10 plus 4 is 14. I forgot my plus. So my answer is y equals negative 2x plus 14. That is my answer in slope-intercept form. So I just converted my point slope into slope-intercept form. Let's do number 8. All right, so here we go. See the parentheses? So that means I'm going to distribute. We have a fraction here. So I'm going to distribute. So that's going to be negative 1/2 x. And then 1/2 of 8. So think about what's half of 8 is 4. We have one negative. That's a positive. So the answer is a positive. So it's, negative 4. The other side doesn't change at all. So we're going to leave it alone. All right, remember, we want it in slope-intercept form. That's y equals mx plus b. And so we want the y by itself. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 4 from both, subtract 4 to both sides. I'm going to bring down my y. This becomes a 0 pair equals a negative 1/2 x. And this is a negative and a negative. So be careful here. Hopefully use a calculator. But a negative 4 subtract 4, that means a negative 8. So my answer is y equals a negative 1/2 x minus 8. That would be my answer, a point slope answer in slope-intercept form. That's number 8. Number 9. All right, so here we go again. Distribute, of course. So 7 times x is 7x. 7 times a negative 2 is a negative 14. Y minus 3 equals. I'm going to add 3 to both sides. Y equals, and it's 7x minus 11. Because negative 14 plus 3 is a negative 11. Be careful here. Make sure you use a calculator if you have to. And this right here would be my answer, the point slope converted into slope-intercept form. So there's 7, 8, and 9. All right, so the last two, excuse me, convert the following into standard form. Standard form is when you have ax, or the number with x plus the number with y together. So otherwise, you're going to have x and y together on the same side of the equal sign. And c represents just a constant, just a plain number. All right. So we're going to convert these into standard form, both of these. All right. Now there's a different way. Now I could change this into slope-intercept form like this, and then I can change it to standard. But I'm going to show you how to change this into standard and then take the slope-intercept and change it to standard. So both of these can be changed to standard. Now we could have taken, like we did these, we did the slope-intercept form in it, and then I could change this into standard if I want to. We did it in my classroom. We went through all the process, but we're going to do this one, point slope, and we're just going to go directly into a standard form. Number 10. All right, so there it is. All right, now for me to put it in standard form, I got to look at what I need. I need the x and the y together on the same side of the equal sign. See the equal sign? Both of these had to be together. And we can leave a number by itself. So I'm going to have to distribute no matter what. I got to distribute because I got to get rid of the parentheses and all that stuff. So we're going to distribute first. So let's do that. And then when we get through distributing, then we can look to see what we move. So take negative 2/3 and we're going to multiply it together. Negative 2/3 and multiply it to 6. Now, two negatives make a positive. Now, I like doing it in my head. So 3 goes, since this means divide here, 3 divided into 6 is 2. Then 2 times 2 is 4. So this will be a positive 4. Now, you could say 2 times 6 is 12. Divide by 3 is 4. It's the same thing. All right, so that's that side. All right, now what I can do. Now, remember, I want to get the X and Y together. Now, I can move this number over here if I want to, and then move the X over here, or I can move the X over and then move the number. Let's move the number first. Let's get rid of that. So that way we can kind of get the Y by itself. All right, so otherwise we're putting it in, basically we're putting it in slope-intercept form. And that's slope-intercept form. That's what we were doing before. Now, let's move the 2x, the X over here. So the opposite of minus 2/3 X is a positive 2/3 X. And we're doing that to both sides of the equal sign. Now, we're going to bring 2/3 X because X comes before Y. So 2/3 X, that is a Y. There's no negative in front of it, so it's a plus. So it's a positive Y. And then this becomes a 0 pair, cancels out, and it equals 1. Now, is this in standard form? Well, remember, A cannot be a negative nor a fraction. Okay, can't be either one. So how do we get rid of this one? If it's a fraction, remember, we'd multiply the common denominator. My denominator is a 3, so I'm going to multiply 3 to everything here. So you can do 3 times 2 is 6, then 6 divided by 3 is 2. Or you can say 3 goes into 3 one time, 1 times 2 is 2. So we're going to say this is 2x. Since this doesn't have a denominator, you can just multiply the 3 and the y together. That makes it 3y. And this one just doesn't have a denominator, so you can multiply 3 times 1 and you get 3. And this is my answer in standard form. See how the x and the y are together, and it equals a number. Now, if this ended up being negative, then you would change everything, all the signs. You'd actually divide everything by -1. All right, but we don't have that situation here. But if you do, if you have a negative here, then you got to flip everything to its opposite. So that would be, if this was a negative, let's do an example. So let's say I had a negative 3x plus 4y equals a -5. And I'm just making this up so you can see it. So if you have a negative, a is negative, then you can divide everything by -1. But just be honest with you, you can just change the sign. So instead of a negative, make it a positive. You have to change all of them. Instead of plus, change it to a negative. If this is a minus, you got to change it to a positive. And so these two really represent the same thing, except you just don't have a fraction or a negative as the a value. All right, so let's do number 11. And number 11 is nice because it's already in our slope-intercept form. So you can see there's really not much left to it. All right, so here we go. All right, so here we go. We have it. Now we got to put it in standard form. Remember, x and y are together on the same side of the equal sign. Okay, so I got to move this x over here. It's a positive, so we're going to subtract 1/5 x. And this is going to turn out exactly what we were just talking about. All right, so we have that. So we have a negative 1/5 x. Remember, x always comes first. This is a positive y, so we're going to say plus y. That's a 0 pair, so we don't do anything, and this equals 2. All right, we have a negative. See the number in front of x, the a value? A value cannot be a negative nor a fraction. This time it's both. So there's two things we can do. We can multiply everything by -5, do the common denominator by -5, or we can just do 5. It's whatever you want to do. So let's go ahead and just do 5, just so you can kind of see what happens. So if I multiply everything by 5, 5 goes into 5 one time. 1 times a -1 is a -1x. 5 times y is 5y. 5 times 2 is 10. Now, see, we have a negative. Now, we could have multiplied all these by -5, and it would have been perfect. So we're just going to change the sign. So instead of a -1x, now remember, we can just write this as -x. So we're going to go ahead and say negative 1x. So it's just going to be 1x. I mean, it's still positive. See, this is negative. Now it's a positive. And if you don't understand what I'm saying that how many x you see? 1. So see, it's 1x. It's the same thing. All right. Instead of a plus, we're going to change it to a minus 5y. Instead of a positive 10, it's going to be a negative. So just remember that whenever you have like a 1x, it really means x. It's not, you don't put the 1 technically on any problem. You just put an x. And that's it. That's how you do the review for the Unit 3A review. And so if you have any questions or anything, feel free to contact me.